This year we'll have more than 30,000 new immigrants who come to Israel. It's the record of the last 12 years.
Israel's politicians are convinced the Jewish future is only within Israel.
If we want to remain a democratic state, we have to have a majority of Jews between Jordan and the Mediterranean.
On a le droit d'exister, on a le droit d'être là, comme eux ont le droit d'être là.
Maybe this century will be the last century when Jews live in Europe.
So we're here at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. In a couple of hours, about 200 French Jews are going to be taking a one-way flight to Israel. So we're here to find out why they're leaving France. Tell me about your decision to move to Israel.
Il y a plusieurs raisons. Déjà, ça faisait longtemps qu'on le voulait pour les enfants. On sent une montée comme ça des gens qui sont de plus en plus... ils observent, on se regarde, le fait de porter la kippa. Je suis français, je suis juif, qu'est-ce que je fais, où est-ce que je me situe? Là-bas, ils seront juifs, pleins et entiers.
Last year, immigration to Israel reached its highest level in over a decade. 30,000 people made the leap, a record 8,000 of them from France.
We have something like 50 to 200 persons each day. It's the biggest summer in the story of Jew Aliyah for France. Most of them, they are family with children, because for them, most important thing is to take the children in the place that will be true for them.
Many of the flights bringing Europeans to Tel Aviv are organized by the Jewish Agency for Israel, which runs joint programs with the Israeli government.
We're just walking into the welcome ceremony for the 200 people who have arrived.
Jewish people who make Aliyah, the Hebrew term for immigration to Israel, get a free one-way flight to Tel Aviv and then a load of other handouts from the Israeli government. Temporary housing, monthly cash payments, and mortgage breaks.
Bienvenue à tous en Israël. Dans quelques minutes, vous deviendrez officiellement des citoyens israéliens. Et vous allez agrandir la nation d'Israël.
This is made possible by Israel's law of return, which gives anyone with a Jewish grandparent the right to full Israeli citizenship.
So what moment did you and your family decide to leave France and why?
Honnêtement, c'est depuis les attentats, je pense, au mois de janvier, de Charlie Hebdo et de Hyper Cacher. Ça a été le... Bon, on y pensait, quoi qu'il arrive, hein, on y pensait depuis quelques années déjà, mais ça a été vraiment le déclic dessus. Même si la France essaye de nous protéger par l'armée devant les synagogues, devant les écoles juives, etc. Pour l'instant, je pense que ça suffit, mais il y a un moment donné où ça va craquer. Il vaut mieux anticiper le départ plutôt que de partir sous la contrainte.
Following a number of terror attacks in Europe last year, several targeting Jewish institutions, politicians and religious leaders are predicting an exodus of Jewish people from Europe.
שוב נרצחו על אדמת אירופה יהודים רק בגלל היותם יהודים. אנחנו נערכים לקליטת עלייה המונית מאירופה. אנחנו קוראים לקליטת עלייה המונית מאירופה.
But critics argue that Israel is taking advantage of fear in Europe by encouraging Jewish people to leave their homes.
Demography is not just technical social science for Israel. It's got a kind of ideological dimension to it that we in Europe are not accustomed to. There has been a very concerted action with respect to French Jewry to try to facilitate their coming to Israel. Every Jew who arrives is basically more human potential for the notion of the Jewish state.
Aliyah is not new. For decades, the Jewish Agency for Israel has been promoting and facilitating it, often in response to global crises. We wanted to investigate these claims of an exodus and Israel's role in the movement. So we went to Ashdod to meet Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky.
there are a lot of reports now claiming that there's going to be some sort of exodus of Jewish people, and so I guess I'm trying to figure out what's true, what's not.
It is happening. More than 2,000 people came in these last 3 weeks, and this speed keeps growing. We this year will have more than 30,000 new immigrants who come to Israel. It's the record of the last 12 years.
Can you understand why that, in a way, seems sort of crazy from an outside perspective, to leave a place like Paris because it's unsafe and then to move to Israel?
France has great laws against anti-Semitism, but it's not about laws and it's not about physical protection. Right. It's about whether you can feel yourself comfortable, secure at home. And they find out that they feel by themselves much more at home when they come to Israel.
We joined Sharansky on a visit to what's called an absorption center, one of many across the country where new immigrants can live and study Hebrew for their first 6 months in Israel.
We're just heading into a Hebrew class.
Why do you come from St. Petersburg or from Moscow here when there are all these situations and feel that here it is more secure?
In Russia, we don't have this government to protect us. Everyone solves their problem by themselves, and here it's not like that. Even here it's milchama or war, whatever. Everyone is under protection. You've got a shelter. You've got an army person who will protect you and save you from the very acute situation.
באיזושהי תוכנית?
היה בפרויקט רופאים, עברתי מבחן, ועכשיו מחפשת עבודה.
מזל טוב.
יש רישיון לעשות.
יש רישיון.
איזה סוג של רופא?
אני רופאת נשים.
לא יכול להיות שלא תמצאי מקום. אני מאוד רוצה שבני נשים.
Here can still be somewhere else. A place where the script is still unwritten. A land of milk and honey.
The Israeli government knows it has to work hard to attract foreigners and is constantly investing in recruitment. Ads like this focus on the sun and beaches of Tel Aviv and look past darker news events in the rest of the country, all to convince prospective immigrants that life can be safe and prosperous in Israel. The Jewish Agency has an operating budget of nearly $400 million a year, coming from global Jewish foundations, charities, evangelical Christians who support Israel, and corporations like IKEA.
And look your future in the eye.
We went to the headquarters of the Jewish Agency in Jerusalem to learn about its plans for the Jewish people of Europe.
Well, these are historical from different stages of Israeli history. Our Zionist propaganda, how it's
Is the Jewish Agency, is the Israeli government actively planning to relocate, say, hundreds of thousands of Jewish people from Europe? Are there plans in place?
At this moment, we are discussing plans for the next 50,000 French Jews moving to Israel, what can easily happen in the next 5 or maybe even 3 years.
What's going on in Europe that you think is pushing people to Israel?
The new anti-Semitism of the new population of Europe is very strong, and sometimes it goes to the extremes with terror activity.
What do you mean when you talk about a new anti-Semitism?
Well, new anti-Semitism is anti-Semitism which was brought with millions of new citizens of Europe who came from the Middle East.
Muslim citizens.
Well, Muslims, I try to be politically correct, and of course overwhelming majority of Muslims are loyal citizens, but anti-Semitic prejudices are very strong. I believe maybe this century will be the last century when Jews live in Europe, and the Jews lived in Europe for more than 2,000 years.
Critics would say that maybe some of your predictions about the 21st century and Jews leaving Europe are exaggerated.
I hope that I'm wrong. And I'm saying that it can be the last century. I say it as a tragedy, not as a triumph. If they have to leave Europe, I want them to come to Israel.
It's true that there have been high-profile anti-Semitic incidents in France. In the summer of 2014, during yet another round of fighting between Israel and Gaza, several anti-Israel demonstrations turned into angry mobs. In the suburbs of Paris, pro-Palestinian demonstrators attacked Jewish-owned businesses and surrounded a synagogue. But some observers think that Aliyah advocates are grossly exaggerating the dangers of Europe.
I think the frightened Jew of yore is not really present anymore. Since the Charlie Hebdo attacks, the French political elites have clearly come out on behalf of the fact that the Jews belong in France.
Vous, Français de confession juive, votre place est ici, chez vous.
But Israel's politicians are convinced that the Jewish future is only within Israel. Israel has certainly, from the word go, looked upon migration and, arrival not only as an almost theological gathering of the Jews around the world, but also as a demographic, vital measure. It is uncontestable that the Jewish state and its various bureaucracies are counting on a massive aliyah by the French Jews and by the Ukrainian Jews as well.
В нашем городе просто нету синагог. У нас с детства Библия в доме.
Our activities here is not only Aliyah, it's both connecting them to Israel and their communities.
It says towns that are waiting for you in Israel, including a number of spots in the West Bank in the occupied Palestinian territory.